Chapter 3 James, King of Two Countries, James and His Enemies. Mary's son, James VI, didn't even remember his mother. As long as he could remember, he had lived in Scotland, looked after by his tutor. James's tutor, a stern Scottish schoolmaster named George Buchanan, taught James Greek, Latin, philosophy, and Protestant theology. He also taught the young king that a ruler's right to sit on a throne was given to him by his people, and that the king had a duty to listen to the opinions of his subjects. But as soon as James grew old enough to rule by himself, he rejected Buchanan's ideas. A king, James insisted, rules by divine right. His power doesn't come from the people he rules, it comes directly from God, so the will of the king is the same thing as God's will. James wrote a little booklet called The True Law of Free Monarchies, about his divine right to rule. In it he announced, "The king is overlord of the whole land. He is master over every person that inhabiteth the same, having power over life and death of every one of them." For 20 years James exercised his divine power in Scotland. Meanwhile, down in England, Queen Elizabeth was growing older. She had no children of her own. Her closest relative was James, because Mary, his mother, had been Elizabeth's cousin. So when Elizabeth died in 1603, James became King of England. He was given a new name, James I of England. Now he was the king of two different countries. From this time on, he was known as James VI of Scotland and James I of England. James traveled south into England for his English coronation. He was welcomed to London by 500 leading citizens, all wearing velvet and golden chains. A parade was planned in his honor, a parade that included the famous playwright William Shakespeare. James was amazed by the wealth and luxury of this country to the south. In comparison, the Scottish court seemed poor and shabby. But even while James was planning his spectacular coronation ceremony, a terrible sickness, called the Black Death, was spreading throughout the city. Over 1,000 people were dying each week. Londoners were too terrified to gather into big crowds, where disease might spread even faster. So James had to cancel his coronation ceremony and his huge celebrations. Instead, he and his wife Anne walked quietly to Westminster Abbey and were crowned King and Queen of England. The disappointing coronation was just a foretaste of troubles to come. During his reign, James would make enemies of Catholics, Protestants, and Parliament itself. Parliament was the group of Englishmen who helped rule England. James's disagreements with Catholics and Protestants came first. When James was crowned king, there were 3 groups of Christians in England. Catholics hoped that James would give them special privileges, since his mother Mary had been Catholic. English Protestants, called Anglicans, hoped that James would stick to the Protestant beliefs he had learned in Scotland. And a 3rd group of Protestant Christians hoped that James would make the Anglican Church even more Protestant. They believed that the Anglicans had borrowed too many church traditions from Catholicism. These reformers were called Puritans, because they wanted to purify the Anglican Church of all Catholic influences. As soon as James arrived in England, the Puritans brought him a petition signed by 1,000 English Puritans, begging him to make the English Church more Protestant. James agreed to meet with the Puritans to discuss their demands, but at this meeting he rejected all of the Puritan ideas. When the Puritans continued to insist that God wanted James to change the English Church, James grew furious. He told the Puritans that he would harry them out of the kingdom, and he made Puritan worship services illegal. Next, James made the English Catholics angry. Under James's laws, Catholics who refused to go to Anglican church services on Sundays had to pay a fine, and the year after his coronation, James ordered all Catholic priests to leave the country. At this, two Catholics, Robert Catesby and Guy Fawkes, came up with a plan to get rid of James and the Protestant leaders of Parliament all in one day. They bought a house next to the huge stone building where Parliament met. Along with 11 friends, they started to dig a tunnel from the basement of their house through the 9-foot stone wall that surrounded the foundation of Parliament House. They planned to pack this tunnel full of gunpowder. As soon as James and the parliamentary leaders were gathered together for the new session of Parliament, Catesby and his companions would blow the whole building up. They dug for months, but as they got closer to Parliament House, the tunnel began to fill with water. So instead, they smuggled barrels full of gunpowder into Parliament House itself. Soon, 36 barrels of gunpowder were hidden beneath firewood in the cellar. But just hours before the explosion was to take place, Guy Fawkes was discovered in the cellar, holding a match. He was arrested and tortured until he confessed, and was put to death. Today, English children still celebrate the day that Guy Fawkes was arrested by setting off fireworks. After this gunpowder plot was discovered, James passed even more laws forbidding Catholic worship in England. Now Catholics and Puritans were both angry with James. And soon Parliament was angry with James as well. James insisted that, because he ruled by the will of God, he could do exactly as he pleased. "The king is above the law," he announced. When Parliament refused to do exactly what James ordered, James told them, "Monarchy is the greatest thing on earth. Kings are rightly called gods, since just like God, they have power of life and death over all their subjects in all things. They are accountable to God only, so it is a crime for anyone to argue about what a king can do." And then James sent all of the members of Parliament home and ruled England without their help. James had made Catholics, Puritans, and Parliament all angry. But today, he is most famous for something he did right. During his reign, James I agreed to make a brand new English translation of the Bible so that everyone in his country, Catholic, Puritan, and Anglican, could use the same Bible. He appointed 54 scholars to make this new translation. It was finished in 1611, 8 years after James became king. Today, this Bible, called the King James Version, is still used by many people around the world.